After months of speculation and leaked pictures, the new Tesla Model Y has officially been revealed. But what's new, and will the changes make it the best electric SUV you can buy? In this video, we're finding out. So here it is, the new Model Y, known around the corners of the internet as Project Juniper, even though that was not an official internal name, and Tesla actually has no idea where it came from in the first place. Anyway, it certainly does look very different from before, doesn't it? But did it need to change so dramatically? Because ever since it first arrived in 2020, the Model Y has been a huge commercial success for Tesla. In 2023, it was the best-selling car in the world, and it's expected to have achieved the same feat in 2024. So, if it's so popular, does it really need an update? To be honest, yes, because the Model Y is up against an ever-growing number of very impressive electric SUVs which have entered the market. And that includes things like the VW ID. Buzz, the Renault Scenic, and the Kia EV6. And when this first launched, the official 331-mile range was very, very impressive. But now, there are lots of other competitors which are also receiving their own updates along the way that can match that number or go even further. A Peugeot E3008, for example, can travel more than 430 miles officially. 4 or 5 years after being released is a sensible time to deliver an update to a car. And there are areas where the Model Y can improve. While the Tesla Model 3 has always felt like a truly groundbreaking electric car, and indeed right now we reckon it's the best EV that you can buy, the Model Y is a very good electric car, but it hasn't impressed us quite to the same extent. For a start, the Model Y is more expensive, and even though it costs more money, it's not as sharp to drive, it doesn't ride as well as the Model 3, which also received a big update last year. But the Model Y is bigger, and obviously it's an SUV, whereas the Model 3 is a saloon. And so because this is bigger and therefore more practical as an SUV, that is the justification for this being more expensive than the Model 3. But the differences in practicality between the two cars aren't quite as huge as you might imagine. It is clear though SUVs are vastly more popular than saloons, and so that is why the Model Y has been a huge success commercially, even though we reckon the Model 3 is actually a more compelling package overall. So, new competition, a few areas to improve anyway. Expectations are very high for these updates to an already very good electric car. So will these changes be enough to send it to the top of its class? And will this actually now be even better than a Model 3? Let's point out the changes in design first. So down here, there's no badge at the front, and there's also a new light bar, which looks a lot like Tesla's Cybercab and the Cybertruck. But on the Model Y, this isn't just one continuous light bar. You can see it's broken up with these two lines. There's also now a front camera down here in the middle to help with the assisted driving features, and this is in addition to the two front-facing cameras in the windscreen that the old car already had. There's also a water jet to keep itself clean. We know that the Chinese version of the Model Y has 5 paint colours to choose from, which includes a new blue, but in the UK and the rest of Europe, there are just 2 colours to choose from at launch, black and silver. And the reason for that is something we'll explain later on. But we do know that further down the line, there are going to be more colours joining the Model Y lineup for the UK and the rest of Europe. You'll also, at launch, just get 20-inch so-called Helix 2.0 alloys. In the future, there will be 19-inch alloys as well. At the back of the car, there's this reflective light, and the Tesla name now features up here rather than the badge. The license plate has also moved down, and the rear window is more squared off than before. This section is also now 3 pieces rather than the 2 that it was before. Inside, there's no wood on the dashboard anymore. Instead, you have this fabric covering, and you also have the steering wheel from the new Model 3, but with one key difference. For the Model 3, when that was updated, it removed the physical indicator stalk and put some buttons on the steering wheel instead, which was fiddly. It took ages to get your head around. Thankfully, for the Model Y, they haven't done that. They've kept this physical indicator stalk there, which is great. And Tesla says that's not as a result of Model 3 owners absolutely hating that new setup, and instead it just thought that the typical buyer of a Model Y would prefer this more familiar layout to things. Unfortunately, there's no plan to put a physical indicator stalk back in the Model 3 in the future. Tesla has, though, taken away the gear selector for the new Model Y, so it will have the same unusual predictive touchscreen setup as the Model 3. Elsewhere, there's new ambient lighting, there's a new glass sunroof, which lets in 26% less solar radiation, which should make it easier to keep the cabin cool. Admittedly, more of an issue in sunny parts of the world rather than here in the UK. The 15.4-inch touchscreen infotainment system is the same size as before and has pretty much the same software as before, but it now has thinner bezels. There's upgraded acoustic glass in the front and the back, something which the Model 3 benefited from, and Tesla reckons there's 20% less road noise as a result of this. But we'll have to drive the car ourselves to judge whether that really is the case. You now have ventilated seating front and back. Previously, they were only heated. And in the back, the seat cushions are longer than before. There's an 8-inch rear screen, and now you can electrically adjust the angle of the backrest using these buttons down here. There's another button in the boot, which means you can flatten them from there as well. Slightly oddly, there was a 7-seat Model Y, which has only just been announced in the UK, but already pretty much sold out. But we've been told there are currently no plans for this new car to get a 7-seat version. As for the boot itself, there aren't any huge changes in dimensions to this new Model Y, so that means it still has a huge boot, especially when you factor in the large well under the floor. There's also a smaller underfloor storage area directly behind the rear seats, which is a great place to stow the charging cables. But there is apparently overall 20 litres less storage than before. Tesla hasn't really explained where it's been lost, but in the grand scheme of things, 20 litres isn't a great dent on what is a huge boot overall. Because using the front boot under the bonnet as well, in the old car, we managed to squeeze in a very impressive 10 carry-on size suitcases into the Model Y's load bays, more than loads of other rivals like the Kia EV6 and the Renault Scenic, which can fit in 7. But something new for the front boot is the fact that there is now a drain hole. Unfortunately though, the bonnet is still not powered. It's only the Cybertruck in Tesla's lineup which gets that. Now, what about mechanical updates? Well, we've mentioned there are new wheels and the suspension has been updated as well. And so that, along with the acoustic glass inside, means Tesla is promising a smoother and quieter ride than before, which would be good because ride comfort and refinement have not been the strongest points for the Model Y. But whether it really does make a big difference to the car is something we'll only be able to tell once we've driven it. Now, if you're expecting a huge increase in range for this new Model Y, then you might be a bit disappointed because this actually uses the same battery and motor from before. But because of slight increases in aerodynamics, the official WLTP range is up from 331 miles now to 353 miles, which is better and keeps this very competitive, if not absolutely groundbreaking. It will still have the same charging capability as before, by the way, meaning a maximum speed of 250 kilowatts, and it will be able to use the 1700 superchargers found across the UK. There is an increase in performance though, even without changing the electric motor. This will mean it can now cover 0 to 60 miles an hour in 4.1 seconds, which is more than half a second quicker than before. That is for a dual motor long-range Model Y, and for now at least that will be the only version of the car that you can buy. In the UK and the rest of Europe right now you can buy the Model Y Launch Series, and that's it, which means you get an all-wheel drive Model Y with the long-range battery from before. There are just 2 paint colours, like we mentioned earlier. You get a black interior, 20-inch alloys, and a price tag of £60,990. And that is more expensive than the old Model Y Performance. It's £9,000 more than the old dual motor long range. However, that might not be the end of the world, because while nothing official has been announced, there will be other versions of the car in the future. So surely, at some point, there will be other, cheaper versions of the Model Y available. Just not right now. So that is everything we know about the new Tesla Model Y. Could all these changes add up to make it even better than before? We're looking forward to driving it to find out. Thanks for watching. To see many more videos like this, make sure you subscribe to our channel and go to whatcar.com to read more about the new Model Y and every other car around.